like you. Be strong to hold the powers of the sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one.
Recently, a moment between Jimin and Jungkook once again became the center of attention among fans. It wasn't just about what they said, but about the way they understood each other without needing any additional explanation. The camera captured something more than a simple exchange of words. There were gestures, glances, and a familiar ease that only longtime followers of Jikook could immediately recognize. It all began when Jungkook stated that what they were doing was just work. But his tone, the way he looked at Jimin, that small smile tugging at the corner of his lips, none of it aligned with someone giving a formal clarification. It was the expression of someone who was teasing, someone who felt completely comfortable, someone speaking to a person who knows him too well to misunderstand. And Jimin caught it instantly. He didn't need to ask anything or correct anything. He simply flowed with Jungkook's rhythm, naturally, effortlessly, like two people who have been speaking the same unspoken language for years. To outsiders, the moment might have seemed ordinary. But for those who have observed Jikook's dynamic over time, it was obvious that their interaction carried layers of meaning left unsaid. Predictably, however, some Taekook fans rushed to twist the moment into a confirmation that Jungkook was only talking about work. They clung to a single phrase while completely ignoring the context presented right before their eyes. But those who truly understand Jungkook's communication style knew he was playfully mocking the exact narrative those fans keep pushing, the idea that everything between him and Jimin must be reduced to professionalism. His smile, his relaxed tone, and the look he gave Jimin afterward were far more telling than the sentence being cherry-picked online. Jungkook wasn't establishing distance. He was showing in the most Jungkook way possible that he knows what people say and isn't interested in defending himself through long speeches. He prefers subtlety, soft gestures, light-hearted words, and body language that speaks louder when paired with Jimin's reaction. Are you sure? As a show has always provided little moments that certain groups try to reinterpret endlessly. But for fans who truly observe Jimin and Jungkook, everything feels consistent. The way they gravitate toward each other, the way they give each other space only to close that space again without thinking, and the undeniable natural comfort they display on and off camera. Yet every time a moment like this appears, those pushing an alternative narrative immediately scramble to rewrite what is plainly in front of them. Ironically, when Jungkook shows an equally simple gesture toward Taehyung, or even something far more casual, the same people suddenly declare it holds deep meaning. They claim hidden messages, proof, or signs that support a theory repeated for years. But when those gestures are compared to Jungkook's consistent behavior with Jimin, the difference becomes unmistakable. Jungkook's patterns are stable with Jimin. They are not consistently present elsewhere. This consistency is exactly what makes some people uncomfortable. Each year that passes, Jimin and Jungkook's bond becomes more visible, more natural, and harder to deny. And so the familiar arguments arise. Claims that everything is orchestrated by the company, that this is fan service, that they were paired up only for content. But those claims crumble when placed next to all the small, repeated behaviors. The way Jungkook greets Jimin, the way he reassures him backstage, the soft conversations they share even when cameras are nearby. These patterns didn't appear overnight. They are the result of years of genuine interaction. Jungkook has never made a secret of how important Jimin is to him. He shows it in the way he treats him, the way he looks at him, and in how easily he includes Jimin in countless meaningful moments. And every time they appear together on something like, "Are you sure?" those long-observed dynamics become even more evident. Their relationship feels real, familiar, and unforced, something that grew naturally rather than something scripted or arranged. Of course, the fandom will always have groups debating different narratives. But for those who have followed Jikook closely, the interpretation remains simple. It isn't about extreme theories or dramatic assumptions. It's about consistency. And the consistent choice Jungkook makes over the years, in small and big ways, keeps pointing back to Jimin. The problem has never been the lack of evidence for their closeness. The truth is that there is too much evidence, too steady, too natural, and too unchanging to ignore. The real challenge for some fans is accepting that Jungkook, in all his daily gestures and interactions, has long shown himself to be warmer, more open, and more at ease with Jimin than with anyone else. And that conclusion isn't the product of exaggeration. It's the result of years of visible, undeniable moments. There are moments in fandom culture that arrive quietly and unexpectedly, yet somehow manage to take over an entire timeline within minutes. This recent moment between Jimin and Jungkook was exactly that. On the surface, it looked like a simple conversation caught on camera. Two people sitting side by side in a car, exchanging words that seemed light and casual. But for anyone who has been observing their dynamic for years, it was immediately clear that this was one of those moments that said far more than it appeared to. The clip opened with Jungkook answering a question about what they were doing, and he replied with something that seemed straightforward, that everything had one reason, and that reason was work. But the tone he used didn't match the words he chose. The slight smile lingering on his lips, the softness in his eyes as he glanced at Jimin, and the almost playful cadence in his voice, none of this aligned with someone making a serious clarification. Instead, it felt like he was teasing someone familiar. Someone who understood him effortlessly. Someone who didn't need to be told when he was joking, hinting, or deflecting with a bit of humor. And Jimin, as always, understood instantly. He didn't stop to question the statement or the tone. He simply responded in a way that synced perfectly with Jungkook's energy, the way you respond to someone whose humor and personality are second nature to you. There was no pause, no hesitation, just natural understanding. To the untrained eye, it might have seemed like a normal moment between two close colleagues. But to longtime Jikook supporters, the subtle tension, unspoken communication, and the way both of them seemed to fall into their familiar rhythm made the moment glow with meaning. Predictably, not everyone saw it that way. Within hours, some Jikook fans jumped to reinterpret Jungkook's words as a definitive confirmation that everything he and Jimin do together is solely work-related. They clipped the single line, removed it from the visual context, stripped it of tone, and used it to argue that the interaction had no deeper meaning. But the truth is that interpretation collapses when you put the words back into the full picture. Jungkook wasn't distancing himself from anything. He was laughing at the exact narrative they keep pushing, one that tries to reduce every moment between him and Jimin to professionalism. Jungkook is many things, but he has always been transparent in his own subtle way. When he wants to be serious, his tone shifts unmistakably. When he wants to shut down a rumor or clarify a misunderstanding, he does it with a bluntness that leaves no room for ambiguity. And when he is teasing, lightly mocking the assumptions others make, he does it with a soft smile, a gentle voice, and a glance toward the person he wants to share the joke with. That was exactly what happened here. The smile he gave, the knowing look toward Jimin, the ease in his shoulders, none of it matched someone trying to establish formality. Instead, he was acknowledging the conversation happening online and poking fun at it with the one person who understands him better than anyone else. Jimin didn't need an explanation. He didn't need a disclaimer. He simply smiled back, played along, and moved with the moment as naturally as breathing. That is the thing about their connection. It isn't loud. It doesn't need dramatic declarations. It reveals itself in small gestures, ones that most people might miss, but that longtime followers of Jimin and Jungkook immediately pick up on. Are You Sure? Has become a treasure trove of these moments, a collection of subtle interactions that speak volumes without ever needing to be spelled out. And every time something like this happens, it becomes a battleground of interpretations. Jikook fans often dismiss Jimin and Jungkook's interactions as fan service, yet when Jungkook shows even the simplest gesture toward Taeyong, they treat it as hidden meaning, secret messages, or proof of long-held theories. They separate moments into categories that serve their narrative. If it's with Jimin, it must be staged. If it's with Taeyong, it must be real. But those selective interpretations fall apart when compared with Jungkook's consistent patterns. Because with Jimin, the consistency is unmistakable. The way Jungkook naturally gravitates toward him during group activities, the way he chooses to sit beside him without being asked, the way his expression softens the moment Jimin speaks. These are not isolated moments. They are part of a long, visible pattern that has remained unbroken for years. You see it backstage during concerts, where Jungkook often checks on Jimin, quietly encouraging him or lightening his stress with a small joke. You see it in documentaries, where they speak softly to each other even with cameras present. You see it in rehearsals, where they naturally pair up or stay physically close without thinking. These small, repeated behaviors accumulate into something that feels undeniably intimate. This is why some fans feel threatened by it. The bond between Jimin and Jungkook isn't performative. It isn't dependent on external circumstances. It doesn't appear only when the cameras are rolling. Instead, it feels like the result of years of emotional familiarity, something that cannot be dismissed as coincidence or scripting. And so, to maintain the alternative narrative, they claim it must all be orchestrated by the company or forced by the production team. But the more those claims are made, the more transparent their desperation becomes. What truly unsettles them isn't what Jimin and Jungkook show, it's what Jungkook doesn't show with others. He doesn't maintain the same emotional consistency. He doesn't offer the same lingering glances. He doesn't express the same quiet affection. He is friendly and warm to everyone, of course. But the specific softness he shows toward Jimin stands out unmistakably. And Jungkook has never tried to hide it. Across years of public appearances, live streams, behind-the-scenes footage, and now, Are You Sure?, he has shown again and again how important Jimin is to him. Sometimes it's obvious, like when he chooses to hold Jimin close during emotional moments. Sometimes it's subtle, like the way he relaxes when Jimin enters a room. But it is always there, consistent, recognizable, and deeply genuine. Are You Sure? Only amplified what the fandom already knew. Every glance, every touch, every moment where they lean into each other without hesitation reinforced a connection that feels rooted in something real. They don't need dramatic gestures to prove anything. The simplest movements carry more weight than any statement could. They act like people who know each other deeply, trust each other fully, and have built something stable over many years. Even in the middle of fandom discourse, where people argue endlessly, rewrite contexts, create theories, and twist narratives, the truth remains simple. Jimin and Jungkook share something undeniably special. Something that has never been dependent on rumor or speculation. Something visible through years of consistent behavior. Something the cameras didn't create but merely captured. And no amount of reinterpretation can erase what has been evident all along. Jungkook, in countless subtle ways, has always been more open, more comfortable, and more emotionally transparent with Jimin than with anyone else. Their bond isn't defined by a single moment. It's defined by thousands of them, quiet, steady, and unmistakably real.